a lot of emphasis in the United States on individual freedom and individual achievement. And then we add a heaping dose of do-it-yourself fortitude. It's probably why we have a love affair with YouTube, Home Depot, and IKEA. With that last example, it might also be those Swedish meatballs. But for the rest of us, we need each other. We need connection. Humankind has always relied on connection for survival. In some cultures, casting out is what they do to those they need to punish. But we call it self-service checkout and drive-through. It's a quirky dynamic, really. On one hand, we have a public health problem of social isolation and loneliness, which has manifested itself in mental health conditions, including depression and dementia, as well as physical ailments like high blood pressure. And we've heard this from the World Health Organization, the CDC, the U.S. Surgeon General, the National Institute on Aging, the American Psychiatric Association, and Instagram. On the other hand, there's a growing demand for online shopping, streaming services, and built-in at-home bars. I'm no scientist, friends, but nightly binge-watching your favorite show on Netflix while ordering clothes online and sipping a craft cocktail, all from the comfort of your couch, is probably not going to help us tackle this issue of loneliness. Somewhere in here, we need to find a balance. I've been keeping a journal for the last 20-ish years or so. I'm nowhere near the daily writer my grandmother was, but I have found it to be one of the most impactful tools for self-reflection and self-discovery. I had one single journal entry in 2020, just one, and it was on March 16th. I'll give you the gist of what I wrote. Seriously uncharted territory, global pandemic called COVID-19, schools are closing, work remotely, and I wrote that one word for which our collective disdain almost unified the world over: unprecedented. After writing in my journal that day, I struggled with how I could offer something of value into this space we had been thrust into. I am a far cry from being in a role other people rely on for day-to-day survival. You remember essential worker? We need medicine, we need groceries, and Lord knows we need toilet paper. What was I doing? Well, I had just launched my non-essential business, a business that required one-on-one, in-person connection in December 2019, 4 months before the launch of a global pandemic. Wah, wah. But the next day, I set up shop. By shop, I mean a 6-foot foldable table in my living room under the window. And on the table, a collection of pens, some note cards, and a lamp. And I announced to my family I was going to send a minimum of 3 people a handwritten note. Now, the first one, well, that went to my mom. She's here somewhere. Hi, Mom. And inside each one, I enclosed a small paper heart, folded from my son's collection of origami paper. I had no idea what each day would bring, but I know who I am, and I know I wanted to be in service to others. What was and still is essential to me is connection. And I learned that this mattered to people more than I ever knew. Did you know We have around 6,000 thoughts every day. Now, some say it's as high as 70,000 thoughts. So there's some disparity. But even if we stay with a more conservative number, it's still a lot. And a lot of these thoughts are repetitive. Just think, when you wake up to the sound of your alarm in the morning and you think to yourself, I have 5 more minutes, and you snuggle deeper into the covers. Or later that same morning when you think to yourself, I'll just heat up my coffee in the microwave, only to find a mug from yesterday still waiting. But some of the thoughts we have are about people from our own lives. Perhaps people from long ago who, for whatever reason, have taken up residence in your memories. Or perhaps people from your more recent life, your current interactions, however brief those interactions may have been. Several of my Origami Heart recipients worked in healthcare. My best friend, Erica, my cousin, Allison, my cousin-in-law, Luke, and an old friend from high school, Alexis. As I folded the heart for Alexis, I thought about what I remembered of her. Alexis and I grew up in a small town in northern Michigan. She lived on a dairy farm with her parents and her 2 older brothers. I remember when we were in school, she was often talking in class. And I also remember in class, if she had to sneeze, it was high-pitched and cute, like a mouse. And I remember when she would sneeze, it would send the entire class into fits of giggles. Alexis and I weren't the best of friends, but we were always friendly. I can't remember exactly what she does in the medical field. She's like a nurse, but not exactly a nurse. Gosh, it has to be so hard for anybody working in healthcare these days. Does she have 3 kids? She has 3 kids. The littlest is many years younger than the first 2. I can't remember how old he is, though. I can only imagine what she might be going through right now. And step number 10, tuck the point into the pocket. Voila! As I folded that heart for Alexis, I couldn't know what was going on in her life, but it was mid-April 2020, so it had to be pretty stressful. And I wanted her to know she was on my mind. Folding her this heart was what I could do. After folding the heart for Alexis, I folded a heart for Brian, then Katie. And the next day, it was Mark, Paula, and Dawn. And the day after that, it was Amy, Jesse, and Dave. And this continued with more hearts, more people, and it carried me through 2020. 833 hearts carried me through 2020. What I didn't realize was how much they carried others. I didn't realize how much these hearts mattered to people until messages started coming back to me. Some right away with close friends who would send me a text or make a phone call, but some arrived months later from a card in the mail from somebody I'd never actually heard from, except I sent one to them. Some arrive even to this day. At a conference this past summer, a man I had met came up to me. He took out his wallet, he opened it, and he pulled out the heart that I had folded for him the year before. He carried it with him. I'm a person who can get really invested and involved in other people, to the point that I can get a little too invested, too involved. A friend of mine who shares this same tendency has taught me to stop and ask myself, is this mine to carry? And sometimes, oftentimes, the answer is no. But I can always give my heart. What if we were all doing this? I don't mean folding 3 origami hearts a day. I still send them, but not at a rate of 3 a day. What I mean is, what if we were reaching out to the people we thought about with something tangible? Try this. For the next 30 days, keep a list, just a list, of the people you think about. Sure, your spouse or your partner is going to make the list. Lord, I hope so. Your children, your siblings, sure. And then consider the people that, just pay attention to the people that just come to your mind. Write them on the list. It might mean you have to find out the neighbor's name down the block, or pay closer attention to the server at that favorite restaurant you frequent. And then reach out to them with something tangible. It doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be flowery, it just has to be real, and it has to be kind. There are about 300 people-ish here today, give or take. And if only half of you take me up on this idea to send something to the 30 people you think about, that would come to 4,500 people. Then let's say half of those recipients also send something to the 30 people they think about. Now our little connection community has grown to be 67,500 people, and that is greater than the population of Oshkosh, Wisconsin, where we are right now. And imagine if all the people who ever hear this talk do the same thing. I started this endeavor in 2020, what I now refer to as the COVID times. And like many of you, I learned more about infectious diseases than I ever wanted to know. One of the things I learned is how quickly they spread. But a virus isn't the only thing that spreads. Love spreads too. So reach out to the people you think about and make a connection. Friends, this is more than an idea worth sharing. It's an action worth taking.